See, we don't warm up, we don't do anything. We just go out and play. All right. That was sexual. I was used to getting up in the morning, and the first thing I would do is open a can of beer. And that's how I started my day, you know. One day I did that, had a beer, and then threw up. Normally it wasn't beer, threw up blood that morning. And I went, okay, that's probably not good. And then I realized, my doctor said, hey, if you want to go join your buddies, I had a drinking club called the Hollywood Vampires. And it was Keith Moon, John Lennon, you know, Harry Nilsson, all the guys that you would expect, all the usual suspects. And we would drink every night until last man standing. Every one of those guys went down. Now, John, of course, was, you know, a tragedy. But Harry and Keith and all the guys that we drank with, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, all excessive. Everybody died of excess.
Yeah.
You know, when you get a driver that you hit it maybe twice and it's just dead down the middle every time? My wife's gonna be jealous of this driver. But honey, do we have to sleep with it? Doctor says, well, if you want to join your buddies, just keep going. And the blood thing was something that, you know, got to me. It's okay to throw up blood on stage, it looks great. But when it's in your Holiday Inn room, it just doesn't make sense. My wife went like this, that's it, boom, hospital. I started playing golf when I quit drinking. It was 32 years ago, and I had to find something that was going to be as addictive as alcohol. And this game is that. I started playing because I had to do something that was going to take up 5 hours a day. You know, an alcoholic has to have something to do during the day, or they sit and watch TV and they start thinking about alcohol. So the first year that I played 36 holes a day, every day. But I played with pros in the morning, pros in the afternoon, different ones. So I was taking a 10-hour lesson. By the end of that year, I was a 9 handicap. It was something I looked forward to every day. I get up in the morning, and first thing I do is I go out to the golf course, and I'd play golf all day. And I never get tired of the game. You can play the same course every day, you know, for 5 years and never have the same shot twice. Here comes. It's like rock and roll. I never get tired of the power chord. You know, I never get tired of the big Pete Townsend windmill. You know, that's just something that's in your DNA after a while. So, you know, it was an awfully good therapy for me. I know I hit right here. The rattlesnake Hilton, right there. See these little holes? There could be anything in there, from a prairie dog to a tarantula to a rattlesnake. But most rattlesnakes will stay up under those rocks.
Right.
So if you were going to look for a rattlesnake down here, a nest of rattlesnakes would be sort of like up in those rocks and under.
Yeah, in the shade.
In fact, you would probably, they're sleeping now, but if you went up there, there might be 20 or 30 of them that are all hibernating right now.
Yeah.
You don't really want to wake them up. They have an attitude problem, yeah.
So in summertime, if your ball comes in here,
Leave it.
you send your caddy in.
I'll go get it, but nobody else should. Because I have a history with snakes. They don't bother me. They'll come in and they'll go like this. They'll go, hey, it's Alice. Audition for the show.
I stepped over a rattlesnake, curled up, ready to strike. And so what does Alice do? He goes, oh, I know him. So he goes, gets his golf club, and he starts messing with it.
Well, I'll just pick him up.
Pick him up. But it'll strike him, hit his golf club, and knock it out of his hand. I go, Coop, that's a warning. He's pissed. And he's like, no, he's not. He's just grumpy. I said, well, you know, grumpy.
You just got to know where to be.
Yeah.
The guys that get bit are the guys that are from you know, either from Canada or they're from down the south, and this is what you hear. Hey, Bubba, watch this. That's the guy that's going to get bit.
Yeah, been drinking.
Because he's down here and he's going, come on. He doesn't realize that snake can jump to there.
Right.
The strike can go 3/4 of his body.
Right.
So if he's there, he's going to get it right there because this snake's going to strike the closest thing. So what I do is I put my club down. So if he's going to strike something, he's going to strike the closest thing. He won't hit me. He'll hit the club, you know. But honestly, the poor little guy, everything in the desert's trying to kill the rattlesnake. The hawks are, the roadrunners, king snakes, everything out here, and you know, mostly people. They see a rattlesnake and they try to kill it, and you go, come on, the guy's just a regular, he lived here before you did. So you just shoo them away, and they just take off. They don't want any part of you anyways. If it was a black mamba, you'd be in a lot of trouble. Alice Cooper, the character, hates golf. If you put golf clubs on a stage, he would think that they were weapons, you know. He's totally not into this at all. So I have successfully separated the character from me. So, I mean, I get up in the morning, I play golf, you know, go to church on Sunday, I go to Bible study on Wednesday mornings. You know, I do everything a dad would do, normal dad. And then that night I get to play the monster, which is great. Because I mean, it's sort of like you get to get into somebody else's skin. And Alice is so opposite of me. That's what makes it really interesting for me. When I become Alice, I'll be standing there talking to the band, you know, the curtain's down and going, yeah, that's great. Well, did Detroit win today? Like that, the curtain goes up and it's boom. And the posture changes, face changes, attitude changes. When the curtain comes down, it's, so did they win or not? I can't remember. I mean, it's like snap on, snap off. And I've been doing it for 45 years. So it used to be a gray area. I didn't know where I started and where Alice ended. But when I got sober, it was really simple. Play Alice at night, leave him on stage, because he doesn't want to play golf. He doesn't want to be married. He sees an audience, and that's his life right there. If there's no audience, there's no Alice. He just disappears. Went that way. Mick Jagger's not Mick Jagger when he's walking around the street. When he's on stage, he becomes Mick Jagger, the rooster. He's the cock of the walk right there. Everybody that ever gets on stage assumes another character. And then when they're off stage, they let it go, you know. The ones that live. Jim Morrison died because he tried to be Jim Morrison all the time. Jimi Hendrix, same thing. Janis Joplin, they all wanted to be that character in everyday life, and you can't live past, you know, 27 years old like that. So our generation kind of learned from their generation. You know, it was too bad to see your big brothers going. But then you realize why they were going, and then you said, well, I got to fix that. I want to do that, but I don't want to die like that. So, you know, in comes golf. I love it when I see 28 handicappers going,
Yeah.
let me see. First of all, I don't know what that does.
You talk to your ball a lot as it goes?
Yeah, you have to talk to it. Never listens. Yeah, school's out with 72. We got banned in England. We would send Mary Whitehouse flowers every day. And we would send Leo Absey cigars. And they're going, what's wrong with these guys? We're trying to ban them, and you couldn't be helping us more. You know, anytime you tell somebody, it's like the PMRC. You put a thing on the, you know, on the record that says lyrics, you know, not for 13-year-old kids. Well, every 13-year-old kid's gonna see that and go, I gotta have that record. It backfires on you. You know, what it should say is, there's nothing in this record that's gonna bother your 13-year-old kid. Then the kid goes, I don't wanna see it.
So that was 72, wasn't it? 72?
Yeah.
School's out, wasn't it?
Yeah, school's out was 72.
Yeah.
Elected same year, because it was the election year for Nixon. I could have easily beaten Nixon. John Lennon used to listen to that. You know, he always wanted me to get political, and I'm the least political guy on the planet. I kept telling him, I said, I'm not politically correct, I'm politically incoherent, okay? And he was very political, so he saw that song as politics. I saw it as total satire. you know. But he loved the song. And I remember that he listened to it 3 times and he left the room and he comes back in and he goes, Paul would have done it better. And I went, well, yeah, he's Paul McCartney. that's kind of a given, isn't it? Oh, that's all over it. Come on, baby. There's nobody out there that isn't fun to play with. I mean, look what they're doing for a living. They're playing golf. You know, how hard is that? You know, I mean, I know that it's stressful because but I mean, on a bad year, you're making $1 million playing golf. It's not like you get up in the morning and go, oh gosh, I gotta go play golf today. Oh, well, I love watching Tiger. Tiger's a mystery. You know, I think if Tiger Woods hit the stinger every day, all day, he'd never lose a tournament. I don't think about his politics. I don't think about his marriage. That doesn't interest me at all. It interests me what he does on the golf course. So it's funny to see a guy that can play that well, all of a sudden play horribly. You know, you go, wow, what's going on today? He never misses a 5-foot putt, you know, and there he is missing it. Oh! Well, there was a time when I was a good asset. I was the unknown source. I'd have hair down to here, and I was like a 6, and nobody knew I was a 6. So I'd mess up the first couple of holes, and then, you know, the guys thought that was easy pickings, you know, and they'd go, well, we could play, you know, $20, and I'd go, oh, you can play this for money? I didn't know that. And all of a sudden, birdie, par, par, birdie, birdie, and the guy's going, wait a minute, I just got hustled.
How many takes did I tell you? I see this every day.
We're tied going into the British Open because this looks so much like Scotland. Yeah, that's going to be hard to beat. You're playing in Scotland, you've got the wind and you've got haggis to deal with, which there's no excuse for at all. I mean, there's just no excuse for haggis. Come on. Right now we have the very colorful Chips Segal. Oh, and he answers right back. You know, when it comes to guns, though, Cooper's really got him on that.
Look at those.
Yeah, look at that. Huh?
He's got a license for that.
Yeah. Those are automatic weapons.
CCW card.
When you have kids, your priorities change immediately. You know, when you don't have kids, you're incredibly selfish. You know, my wife and I, let's go to Jamaica. Okay, let's go. We have no responsibilities at home. Soon as you have a little girl, right? So I've got a game set up with Mickelson, Mayfair. I think Annika's going to be there. It's going to be a big skins game up at Desert Mountain. And I'm waiting all week for this. And they invite maybe 4 or 5 single-digit guys to play. And I'm going, okay, great. I got my clubs, and I get right to the door, and my little girl walks up, and she goes, I'm dancing in the cafeteria at noon today. And I went, I'll be there. They call it Phil. I said, my daughter's dancing in the cafeteria. He has 2 girls, and he goes, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Because there's not even a thought that you're going to miss that.
No way.
You know, your 5-year-old daughter's going to dance in the cafeteria, and she wants to see her daddy there. So I said, well, yeah, that's more important than me playing golf with these guys. And it's amazing how you don't even think of that. You just do it. It's the same thing with him. He has a daughter,
11-year-old.
2 daughters.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, they own you forever. You know, all my daughter has to say is, Daddy, and I go, yeah, whatever you want. My son goes, Dad, and I go, work for it.
Right.
What I noticed was, here's a kid standing on the corner selling drugs, 16 years old. And I said, how does that kid know he's not the best guitar player in town? Who knows what potential he has? So we opened a place that's 30,000 square feet. They can come in and learn any of the arts for free. All they have to do is show up. And what it does is it gets a kid from going to gangs, to music. Pretty soon that kid's whole life has changed.
You love it, don't you?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've done it all my life, and I'm going, here's a chance for this kid to do what I'm doing. You know, he might not make a living at it, but at least it's better than what the alternative is.
Yeah.
If you're in a gang, you're either dead or in jail. I tell them, if you want to be in a gang, a band is a gang. It's just you don't get arrested or you don't get thrown in jail or shot unless you're Guns N' Roses, you know.
You might meet girls as well, might you?
And you might just meet girls, yes, which was, of course, the #1 idea of getting in a band. Do a tournament called the Bloodbath, the Alice Cooper's Bloodbath. And what it is it's a scramble, but the shot you use has to be in the cut of the fairway. You could have a guy that hits the ball 300 yards, and if it's not in the fairway, you can't use it. You have to use the shot in the fairway. If you have 4 guys that don't get in the fairway, you have to drop a ball in and take a stroke. So it's a bloodbath, you know, and that's always fun. I've won that one 4 times.
And our trophies.
The trophies, yeah, you get a jacket that's just covered in blood. I mean, it's just the worst thing you've ever. It looks like, you know, you were in an airplane wreck or something.
Yeah.
And the trophies are this high. And the guy on top swinging head doesn't have a head. He's just like this, and the head is in a bathtub at the bottom, just full of blood. Tried to give Schwarzenegger a lesson, right? Now he's got all of this up here. And he goes, I don't know. He said, I can't get through because it's too much stuff here, you know. And I said, yeah. I said, you're like, you know, you're Pamela Anderson out here. You got too much stuff going on if you don't have thick skin, because it's all about abuse. You know, I mean, when we play, we find the guys that can't take the abuse, and just by the 4th hole they're gone. You know, they can't take it. Now, if somebody's going to insult me, great. You know, I've been insulted by the best. It better be good. You know, if somebody insults me, and I could go, wow, that was good. That was really. Somebody once called our first album a tragic waste of plastic. You know, were they pressing the album like that was a tragic waste of that plastic? And that was a great review. I said, that is really creative. You know, of course he's gone and I'm still here, so he was wrong. Lester Bangs, by the way. Actress that everybody just hated. She had a billionaire husband that got her all these parts, right? So she's doing The Diary of Anne Frank, the play, and she's just barely getting the dialogue. By the 2nd act, the audience is there, the Germans are knocking on the door, and the audience is yelling, "She's in the attic! She's in the attic!" That's the best review I ever heard of anything in my life. When the audience is screaming that Anne Frank is in the attic, get her out of here. I'm not that much of a historian, but when you talk to Palmer, and you're doing a whole round with Palmer, I mean, the stories, you know, I mean, are so good, and it's better than the history because it's the stories you don't read in history.
Do you say anything in that conversation, or you just listen?
I just sit there and I listen, you know, and I listen. And then he'll say, well, tell me about rock and roll, you know. And I say, well, you're Elvis. You're the Elvis of golf. I mean, when he had his collar up and a cigarette, you know, and his hair was like this. And, you know, he was a total greaser out there, you know. I think that if you are going to play with 4 guys, and say I'm the 5th guy, probably Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, because all 4 of those guys were single-digit handicaps. And can you imagine how funny that foursome would be? I mean, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis alone is enough to kill you. And Hope and Crosby in their prime, how funny would that be? You know, I wouldn't say a word the whole round. I would just let them talk. I did get to play with Groucho, played with Groucho Marx. And, you know, some of the old comedians were all played in LA. So I got to play with a lot of the old comedians at the time. And sometimes you just let them go. You know, if they ask you something, you say something. But, you know, they're so funny, and there's one-liners are just like this. You just be quiet and let them go. Oh, if I was going to put a band together, or a super band, well, you got McCartney on bass. You got Keith Moon on drums. You got Pete Townsend on guitar. On the other guitar, a tough one, but Jeff Beck on the other guitar. On bass, well, you have Paul McCartney, yeah. And then on keyboards is always hard because probably Dr. John on keyboards, you know.
There's quite a British feel to that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but those were the guys. You know, Jeff Beck was always, I always thought he was the best of the best out of all the guitar players. Even better technically than Hendrix. Hendrix had his own style and it was great and everything, but as a guitarist, I think Jeff Beck was probably the guy. If it were a blues band, I'd have Mike Bloomfield, Elvin Bishop, you know, those two guys, Paul Butterfield. But drums, you have to have Keith Moon. Keith Moon was the best drummer of all time. And Pete Townsend is the very spirit of rock and roll. I saw him play 2 years ago, and he was still the windmill, knuckles were bleeding, he smashed into his amp. He can't get that out of his system, and I love that. I love the fact that he plays harder and with more intensity than any 20-year-old out there. I'd say 80% of what Alice does on stage is what I think he's going to do. There's always that 20% that I never quite know. Like, where did that come from? There's always that moment, you know, it's always like that with metal bands. Yeah. You go to Denmark and there's a band that just ate their lead singer, you know, yeah. And we're the most evil band of all, you know, we are the, and they're, you know, and they come up and they go, hello, Mr. Cooper, how are you? This is my mother made cookies for you. And, you know, and I go, really? You're the most evil band? And they go, yes, well, we try very hard, you know. There used to be, every band was a great rock band. You know, when you went out there, you were up against Thin Lizzy, you were up against Savoy Brown, you were up against any of those English bands, and then the American bands. Now, you have the Foo Fighters, Bruce Springsteen, not a lot of other ones. You have to think about it. I'm waiting to see the next Guns N' Roses. I'm waiting to see the next Aerosmith. We need that again. Right now, everybody is just anemic. I gotta put this way over here on the left. We were born in the perfect time. We were listening to the Four Seasons and the Beach Boys, and that was our bands back then. And then all of a sudden, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm painting the house and I went, what was that? You know, because that wasn't like anything I'd ever heard. I had never seen the Beatles, never heard of them. I heard that song, She Loves You. But I heard, and I went, wow. Because to us, that was hard rock, you know. Now you would consider that pop rock. But that was hard rock at the time. And then you heard 25 other Beatles songs all of a sudden, and it was like nothing you'd ever heard before. And then there were the Stones, and the Kinks, and the Dave Clark Five, and we were just like, you know, and at that time, of course, being 15, I went, well, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And we put our band together. Oh, I pulled it.
I know.
Same
thing I did.
You know, my mom and dad saw the Rolling Stones on TV, and suddenly the Beatles were okay. You know, because the Stones were just this scruffy bunch of guys going, I just want to make love to you, baby. And my mom was going, of course, my band there was sitting there watching the Stones going, someday we want to make these guys look like choir boys. There was already that, let's be the villains of rock. Well, there's too many heroes out there. Let's be the villains. Nobody ever got better than Jagger. Jagger was the prototype lead singer. I don't care whatever lead singer there is out there, they watched Mick Jagger. He was the guy. Mick Jagger watched James Brown. But Mick Jagger, for our generation, there's never been anybody better. He was the guy, still is. I don't think there's anybody out there better than him, you know. So, you know, that's where we grew up. That was our background. When people say, who shaped you? I'd say the Stones, the Beatles, the Yardbirds, the Who, the Kinks, West Side Story, and probably Shriek of the Mutilated. really bad sea movies. Oh, here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, what? It didn't go in. I don't know what happened.
That's weird.
That looked like it was going in, too.
That's so weird.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
You know I won.
I'm Sioux Indian, so I'm pretty good at throwing knives. These aren't heavy enough. But from here to say, you, I could probably put 20 knives within your square there.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a matter of timing. It's just all. So I'm a ninja.